They warned me not to open the coffin. The doctor said it gently, like he was doing me a favor. "Remember her the way she was," he told me. I listened. And that single act of obedience destroyed 5 years of my life. I signed the papers for a sealed casket with shaking hands. I walked out of that hospital believing I was a widower, believing grief was my only enemy. I had no idea I was also walking away from the truth. My name is Harold. I'm 69 years old. I've been a farmer my entire life, born and raised in Franklin, down in the south of Tennessee. My people were simple folks. We worked the land, respected our word, and believed honesty was as natural as breathing. My father used to say the land never lies. You plant, you tend, you harvest. I wish people were that honest too. I grew up barefoot in cornfields, swimming in creeks, eating hot biscuits my mama cooked on a wood-burning stove. We didn't have much, but we had dignity. And I carried that belief into adulthood that if you treated people right, they'd do the same. For 40 years, I thought I had built a good life, a loyal wife, a healthy daughter, a farm that grew from a few acres into something worth millions. I believed I was blessed. I believed I was safe. 5 years ago, that belief was buried in a grave I visited every Sunday. The day they told me Patricia was gone, my world collapsed quietly. No screaming, no drama, just a numb, hollow silence. The doctor said the illness had been cruel, that her body had suffered too much. He advised a closed coffin for my peace. I trusted him. I always trusted people in white coats. The funeral was dignified, flowers everywhere, friends hugging me. My daughter Savannah clinging to my arm like she might fall apart if she let go. I stood beside that casket, imagining her inside, unable to see her face one last time. I told myself love didn't need eyes. I was wrong. After the funeral, I couldn't stay in our farmhouse anymore. Every room echoed with her absence. I moved into a small apartment in town and locked the house behind me like you lock away pain you're not ready to face. For 5 long years, I mourned faithfully. Every Sunday, rain or shine, I drove to the cemetery with fresh flowers. I talked to a stone with her name carved into it. I asked God why he took her and spared me. What I didn't know, what makes my stomach turn even now, is that I wasn't talking to the dead. I was talking to dirt, because while I was grieving, someone was living, breathing, laughing, cooking coffee in the kitchen I built with my own hands. And the day I finally learned that truth started with a phone call I almost ignored. I thought grief was the worst pain a man could endure. But nothing prepares you for discovering that your sorrow was staged, rehearsed, and performed by the people you loved most. Before I tell you how I uncovered the lie, you need to understand the life I thought I had. Because only then can you grasp the size of the betrayal that nearly broke me. Franklin wasn't always what it is today. When I was a boy, mornings started with roosters, not alarms. Breakfast meant grits and fresh milk, and work meant helping my father in the fields before the sun got too high. We didn't stare at screens. We looked each other in the eye. And I truly believed honesty was universal. My father, Walter, was a man carved out of principle. If he gave his word, that was stronger than ink on paper. If he owed a man, he paid every penny. He taught me that friendship was sacred, that you defended a friend like blood. I took that lesson to heart and nearly paid for it with my entire life. My mother, Betty, kept our home warm in ways money never could. Black-eyed peas simmering on the stove, fried chicken and okra on Sundays. After church, we'd sit on the porch, sipping coffee, talking about crops, weather, and dreams. That's where I learned what I wanted, to build something honest, something lasting. I met Patricia at a county fair right here in Franklin. She came from a family with more land, more structure, more polish. But when she smiled at me that night, just a slight curve at the corner of her mouth, I was convinced I was looking at an angel. We dated for 3 years. I worked myself to the bone, saving every dollar, dreaming of the day I'd ask her to marry me. Her father didn't think much of me at first, just another dirt-poor farm boy, but I proved myself with sweat, not promises. When I finally asked for her hand, I did it the old way, hat in hand, eyes honest. He studied me a long moment, then gave his blessing. Our wedding was simple, First Baptist Church, white dress, shaking hands, big dreams. The pastor talked about loyalty, about love in joy and sorrow. I meant every word I said. I believed she did too. We bought a small piece of land, just a few acres, but to me it was heaven. We planted crops together, built the house brick by brick, dream by dream. When our daughter Savannah was born, that house filled with laughter. I thought my life was complete. That's when Roger stepped into my world. We'd known each other since childhood. He went off to Nashville, studied business, came back sharp and confident. He told me he admired my work, saw potential in the farm, wanted to handle the commercial side. I saw in him not just opportunity, but brotherhood. He came over for dinners. His wife joined us at first. We laughed late into the night. Patricia liked him, said it was good to have friends. I handed him the keys to my farm, my business, my trust. The farm exploded in growth, more land, cattle, equipment, wealth I never imagined as a barefoot boy in a cornfield. And I thought I had done it right, with honesty, loyalty, and faith in people. But trust, I would learn too late, is only safe when it's returned. I believed I was building a legacy, but I was really laying the foundation for the greatest deception of my life, one that had already begun behind my back. I used to believe betrayal came from enemies. I never imagined it would sit at my dinner table, laugh with my daughter, and call me brother. As the farm expanded, our lives settled into what looked like stability. Roger handled sales and negotiations. I handled the land. It worked, at least on the surface. He had charm, connections, and a way with words. I had dirt under my nails and faith in people. Together, we looked unstoppable. Roger became a constant presence in our home. Barbecues, beers on the porch, long conversations that stretched into the night. Patricia encouraged it, said friendship was a blessing, that we were lucky. I agreed. I opened my doors wider. When Roger's marriage fell apart, he started coming alone. He said the house felt empty, said he liked the warmth of our family. Patricia made his favorite meals, made sure he felt welcome. Back then, I called it kindness. There were times I had to travel, 2 or 3 days at a stretch to close deals, meet buyers, check markets. Roger stayed behind to watch things. Patricia stayed home with Savannah, or so I believed. Every time I returned, everything looked perfect. The house was clean, dinner was ready. Patricia greeted me with a smile and a hug. Roger gave reports, clapped my shoulder, told me everything was handled. I never questioned it. Why would I? Savannah grew into a bright, joyful girl. The farm kept prospering. Money came in faster than I could track. I signed documents without reading them carefully. A brother wouldn't cheat me, I thought. That kind of innocence feels embarrassing to admit now. But not everyone was blind. We had a housekeeper, Martha. She'd been with us since Savannah was in diapers. One afternoon, about a year before Patricia got sick, Martha came to me, hands twisting her apron, voice shaking. She told me Roger was around too much when I was gone. Said the way Patricia looked at him wasn't right. I should have listened. Instead, I let anger speak. I confronted Patricia. She cried, denied everything, accused Martha of stealing and losing her mind. Roger backed her up, offended and wounded. I chose them. I fired Martha that day, handed her a check and watched her leave in tears. I didn't realize I'd just removed the only person trying to protect me. Not long after, things started to change. Patricia became distant, irritable, said I worked too much. Said life had become routine. I tried harder dinners, trips, affection, but nothing satisfied her. Meanwhile, Roger seemed closer than ever. Weekends, repairs, playing with Savannah, practically family. I thought we were unbreakable. What I didn't know was that while I was working to build our future, Roger was siphoning money and Patricia was rehearsing her exit. They were planning something darker than an affair. They weren't just going to leave me. They were going to erase me. I believed loyalty was my strength, but in truth, it was the weapon they used against me, sharpening it slowly while I stood smiling in their reach. The first lie didn't arrive loudly. It came quietly wrapped in concern, wearing the face of sickness, and I welcomed it with open arms. Patricia started complaining about fatigue. At first, I thought it was age catching up with us. We weren't young anymore. She said her body ached, that she felt drained for no clear reason. She stayed in bed longer, lost her appetite. Her face grew pale. I grew worried. I suggested doctors. She brushed it off, said it would pass. It didn't. Finally, I took her to our longtime family doctor. Tests came back normal, but she kept declining. Weight loss, weakness, tears at night. I watched the woman I loved fade in front of me and fear took over logic. That's when the real nightmare began. We bounced from specialist to specialist. Nashville, then New York, private clinics, experimental tests. Every doctor had a theory. None had answers. Each visit drained more money, more hope. Patricia grew weaker by the day, or so it appeared. I stopped focusing on the farm, left Roger in charge. I dedicated myself fully to saving my wife. I held her hand while she cried, told me she was afraid to die, begged me not to let her go. I promised her I'd move heaven and earth. Savannah suffered too. She came home every weekend, brought flowers, sat beside her mother, trying to be strong. Seeing my daughter hurt like that nearly killed me. We were united by fear, while the center of that fear was carefully acting her role. Roger played his part flawlessly. He brought fruits, offered help, spoke softly, stayed late. When I left to run errands or get medication, he stayed behind with her. I called it loyalty. One night, Patricia looked at me with sunken eyes and said the words that shattered me. "Harold, I don't think I'm going to make it." I felt the ground vanish beneath my feet. She suggested a private hospital in New York, cutting-edge technology, top specialists. The cost didn't matter. Nothing mattered but her life. I agreed instantly. I would have sold the farm stone by stone if it meant saving her. She didn't want Savannah to go, said our daughter had a career, that I was enough. That should have raised alarms. It didn't. The hospital stay stretched into months. I sat beside her bed day after day praying for a miracle. Doctors spoke in cautious tones. Bills skyrocketed. I signed everything they put in front of me. Eventually, they told me I should return home and manage business. Said they'd call if anything changed. Patricia begged me to go. I didn't want to, but I did. That decision sealed my fate. Because while I believed my wife was fighting for her life, she was preparing to disappear. I thought sickness was stealing my wife, but the truth was far worse. She was stealing herself from me, one lie at a time. There are sounds a man never forgets: the crack of thunder, a child's first cry, and the voice that tells you the love of your life is gone. It was 3 in the morning when my phone rang. I had fallen asleep fully dressed, exhausted from another week of worry and travel. When I answered, the nurse's voice was calm, practiced, almost gentle. "Mr. Harold, I'm so sorry. Your wife didn't make it." Those words don't land all at once. They drift, they echo, they refuse to make sense. I remember staring at the wall, waiting for the sentence to correct itself. It never did. I drove to the airport like a man possessed. Caught the first flight to New York with tears burning my eyes and questions screaming in my head. I just wanted to see her. Needed proof. Needed to believe. When I arrived at the hospital, they told me the body had already been taken. A young doctor sat me down, spoke about cardiac arrest, about peace, about how she hadn't suffered. Then he said the sentence that ruined everything. Remember her as she was. The illness took a toll. I strongly recommend a closed casket. I trusted him. I signed the authorization without hesitation. I thought it was mercy. I didn't know it was concealment. The funeral was swift, efficient, too efficient. A sealed coffin arrived in Franklin at dawn, heavy enough to convince everyone it held a body. Flowers covered it. Prayers floated over it. I stood beside it, hollowed out, imagining her face inside, never realizing there was nothing there. Savannah collapsed when I told her. Hearing my daughter scream on the phone is a sound I still hear in my nightmares. She flew in immediately. Roger arrived too, grief written perfectly across his face. He hugged me, cried with us, promised he'd always be there. I thanked him. At the cemetery, I fell to my knees when they lowered the casket. I begged her to come back. I buried my life that day, or so I believed. The weeks after were unbearable. Her scent lingered in the house. I wandered room to room like a ghost. Roger visited often, brought food, told me Patricia wouldn't want me to give up. I leaned on him. Then the insurance money came. $2 million, a policy she insisted on years earlier. I paid debts, covered medical bills, the rest sat untouched. Money felt meaningless. Every Sunday I visited her grave. Fresh flowers, long conversations with a stone. I asked forgiveness. I asked strength. I asked why. For 5 years I mourned faithfully. And all that time, the woman I cried for was alive, sleeping in my bed, walking my land, loving the man I trusted most. I thought grief was the end of my story, but grief was only the distraction, carefully placed, while the real crime lived comfortably in my own home. 5 years after I buried my wife, the dead picked up the phone and called me. At least that's what it felt like. It was a Sunday morning just after dawn. My phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it. Grief teaches you to avoid surprises, but something in my chest tightened and I answered. "Mr. Harold, it's Martha." I hadn't heard that voice in 5 years. The same woman I fired. The same woman I failed. She was crying. Said she still walked the trails behind the old farm, picking wild herbs like she used to. Then she said the sentence that made my blood run cold. "I saw her." I snapped back without thinking. "Martha, Patricia is dead. Don't do this." Her voice hardened. "Dead women don't hang laundry. I know her walk. I know her hum. Please, just go look." She hung up. I sat there shaking, furious at myself for even listening. 5 years of mourning doesn't leave room for hope. It leaves scars, but something in me, something I'd ignored for years, started screaming. I had to know. The drive to the farm took 40 minutes. I knew every curve by heart. Passing the church where her funeral was held felt like driving through a lie carved in stone. As I got closer, my chest tightened harder with every mile. The gate wasn't locked. The dirt road was maintained. The weeds were gone. Someone had been there. When the house came into view, my heart nearly stopped. The garden was alive, roses. Dahlias, trimmed grass, fresh paint gleaming white in the sun. Smoke curled from the chimney. Clothes swayed on the line. That house wasn't abandoned. I crept closer, hiding behind trees, heart pounding so loud I thought they'd hear it. That's when I saw the cameras, modern security newly installed. Fear turned to ice in my veins. I looked through the kitchen window. A woman stood at the stove, gray hair in a bun, humming softly, brewing coffee. Alive, healthy, moving with ease. It was Patricia. I staggered back, gripping the tree to stay upright. Ghosts don't make coffee. Ghosts don't hum. Then the back door opened. Roger walked out, wrapped his arms around her waist, kissed her neck. She laughed in my house. On my land. With my money. 5 years of grief exploded into one unbearable truth. I finally understood it wasn't death that destroyed me. It was the lie that kept breathing right in front of my eyes. If my heart had stopped right then, staring at my dead wife laughing in my yard, it might have been mercy, because what followed was worse than death. I stood frozen behind that oak tree, my hands digging into the bark like it could anchor me to reality. 40 years of memories crashed through my head all at once. Sunday lunches, whispered promises, Savannah's first steps, nights on the porch dreaming about the future. Every moment I treasured now felt poisoned. Roger kissed her like it was the most natural thing in the world. Patricia leaned into him, comfortable, relaxed, alive. 5 years, she said casually. 5 years living there. 5 years since her death. That was when something inside me broke and something else hardened. I stepped out of the shadows. Roger saw me first, his face drained of color so fast I thought he might collapse. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He stumbled backward like he'd seen a ghost. Maybe he had. Patricia turned slowly. The laundry basket slipped from her hands and hit the ground. Sheets spilled into the dirt. She stared at me like the past had come back to collect a debt. "I was going to visit your grave," I said quietly, "but I see you're busy." Her lips trembled. "Harold, 5 years," I roared, 5 years crying over dirt. 5 years paying for your funeral while you played house with my best friend." She tried to cry. Real tears this time, but they meant nothing. She said they fell in love, said they didn't know how to tell me, said I was boring. 40 years of loyalty reduced to that word. "How long?" I asked, my voice dead calm. "How long were you betraying me?" Roger answered before she could. 8 years, 8 years of lies, 8 years of trust turned into mockery. 8 years of signing papers while they laughed behind my back. "The doctor?" I asked. "Paid," Patricia admitted. "The certificate was fake. The coffin was empty. Empty, just like my Sundays at the cemetery." "And the money?" Roger dropped his head. 3 million siphoned from the farm, 2 million from the insurance. 5 million total, sitting in Europe. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Patricia screamed. Roger begged. I dialed the police. "My wife, who died 5 years ago, is alive on my farm with my former partner. I have proof." Sirens came fast. They tried to explain, tried to bargain. I felt nothing. Love had died for real this time. For the first time in years, I wasn't the fool anymore. And when the truth finally breathes, lies don't survive. The sound of sirens cutting through the quiet farm air felt unreal. Like justice itself was finally breathing after 5 years underground. 3 police cruisers came down the dirt road, lights flashing against the trees I planted decades ago. The sheriff stepped out, a man who knew me by sight, by reputation. He looked at Patricia, then back at me, confusion written all over his face. "Didn't you die?" he asked her. "So did I think," I replied, "but here she is very much alive." I told them everything, the fake illness, the hospital in New York, the closed coffin, the empty grave, the insurance fraud, the stolen millions. I showed them the video. Every word I spoke felt heavy but clean, like finally scrubbing poison out of a wound. Patricia begged. Said we could fix it privately, said it was a family matter. The sheriff didn't even hesitate. "Ma'am, you faked your own death. That's a felony." The handcuffs clicked shut on the porch of the house we built together. Roger followed right after. He wouldn't look at me. Patricia cried, said she didn't want to go to jail. I felt nothing. Love had already left my body. The case exploded. News traveled fast. Reporters called. I refused interviews. My pain wasn't entertainment, but I gave statements. The doctor was arrested. The hospital investigated. It wasn't just betrayal, it was a criminal operation. Then came the hardest part, calling Savannah. "Dad," she answered, cheerful, unaware. I told her to sit down, then I said it. "Your mother is alive." Silence, then screaming. Pain so raw it cut me open all over again. She drove to Franklin that same night. At the station, Patricia thought forgiveness was coming. When Savannah stood in front of her cell, she didn't hesitate. "You are a monster," she said. "I cried at your grave." Patricia reached for her. Savannah stepped back. "My mother died 5 years ago. You're just a stranger." She walked away without looking back. The trial lasted a year. Patricia got 12 years. Roger got 15. The stolen money came back, but money doesn't repay humiliation, lost time, or broken faith. I returned to the farm, renovated everything, removed her presence completely. I begged Martha's forgiveness on my knees and brought her back home. The grave was exhumed, empty. I destroyed the stone and planted a tree instead. Life didn't return overnight, but truth finally stayed. Justice closed the case, but healing was still unfinished, because rebuilding a life after betrayal is harder than surviving the betrayal itself. When you spend 40 years living inside a lie, the truth doesn't set you free. It knocks you to the ground and asks if you still want to stand back up. After the trial ended and the headlines faded, the farm grew quiet again. Not the haunted quiet it once had, but a deep, reflective silence. I didn't mourn Patricia's death anymore. I mourned the marriage that never truly existed, the friendship that was never real, the years built on trust that only flowed one way. I ordered the empty grave destroyed. No fake memorial, no lies carved in stone. In its place, I planted a yellow dogwood tree. Every spring it blooms, bright and alive, proof that something good can still grow where deception once lived. Savannah came back to the farm more often. We had both been betrayed in different ways, but the wound was shared. Pain either separates people or binds them forever. It bound us. She took over the business side of the farm, the role Roger once poisoned, and she did it with honesty and clarity. Watching my daughter restore what was broken gave me strength I didn't know I had left. I went to therapy, learned that trust isn't stupidity, it's courage. The shame I carried wasn't mine to own. Still, some nights were heavy. Sundays were the worst. For 5 years, Sundays meant graves. Now Sundays meant learning how to live again. Time passed. The farm healed. Laughter returned, first quietly, then freely. My grandchildren ran through the fields. The house filled with warmth again, not the kind that pretends, but the kind that stays. And then I met Sarah, a widow, a neighbor, an honest woman with no masks. We took things slow. She never rushed my healing. She never demanded trust. She earned it piece by piece. We married in a simple ceremony on the farm, Savannah beside me, the kids running wild. For the first time in decades, I slept in peace. Patricia remains in prison. Roger abandoned her. The love that justified betrayal didn't survive concrete walls. She sent a letter once. I burned it unread. That tree still stands where the lie was buried. No names, no dates, just life. I went to the farm that Sunday seeking closure. Instead, I found truth. And truth, no matter how painful, is always the beginning of something real. If this story moved you, share your thoughts below. Have you ever ignored a gut feeling you wish you hadn't? Subscribe for more real stories, because some truths don't just deserve to be told, they need to be heard. After decades of silence, after years of waiting, the final piece of the puzzle was finally within reach. The past had been cruel, but the truth was about to arrive, unannounced yet undeniable. The sun dipped low over the horizon, casting long golden streaks across the small town. The grandma sat by the canal, her hands trembling slightly over the old photograph she had carried for 44 years. Her eyes, though aged, held a fire that refused to die. Every corner of her heart had hoped, every shadow of despair had lingered, but she had never let go entirely. Then a call, a number she did not recognize, brought her heart to a halt. A voice, gentle but firm, spoke the words she had dreamt of for decades. "We have information about your granddaughter." Time froze. 44 years of questions, of whispers, of haunting uncertainty, all condensed into a single moment. As she listened, tears ran freely down her cheeks, not of sorrow, but of relief. Memories flooded back, vivid as if yesterday, yet softened by the weight of years. Her granddaughter, long thought lost, had lived a life unknown to her family, surviving in a world both harsh and beautiful. The reunion, she realized, would not erase the lost years, but it would heal the void that had never left her soul. Walking slowly to the old bridge by the canal, she took a deep breath of the crisp evening air. She felt the presence of all the years behind her, the weight of every unanswered question, and finally the lightness of hope fulfilled. Life had tested her patience, but in the end it delivered what she had never stopped believing in: love, reunion, and closure. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps these stories alive, and who knows, maybe the next one will change your life too. Thank you for watching, and remember, hope can survive even the longest wait.